Because the human population size is growing exponentially, they can have a large impact on various aspects of the environment. The first is habitat, or where an animal lives. Habitat loss is when the organism's habitat is completely wiped out. Habitat fragmentation is when the habitat is divided into multiple parts. And habitat degradation is when the habitat is worsened to the point where it can no longer be inhabited by organisms. The first impact humans can have is global warming, or the biggest impact humans have. And global warming is an average increase in the Earth's temperature due to increased levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. There's a natural process called the greenhouse effect that traps gases in the Earth's atmosphere. And some of those natural gases are CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and CFCs. With humans, we're actually burning more of these, or emitting more of these into the atmosphere, and we're causing that increase of radiation being trapped within Earth. Global warming became an issue in the 1950s, or became an issue of concern at least, where people started looking into it. And some data has shown that over the last 100 years, there's been an average increase in 1 degree Fahrenheit in the Earth's temperature. And it's expected that within the next 100 years, there's going to be an additional 3 to 10 degree Fahrenheit difference. So our main concern with global warming is burning fossil fuels, deforestation, which would add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and farming, so like livestock and the manure that the livestock produce. All of those produce methane and nitrous oxides, which are very potent greenhouse gases. There are some natural causes of the greenhouse effect, or emissions of greenhouse gases. So decomposition, or breaking down of organic matter, cellular respiration, we give off CO2, volcanoes erupting will give off CO2 and some nitrous oxides, forest fires, which is again the burning of forests and killing of trees. There are a couple of impacts that affect North Carolina. The first is acid rain. And this is when the air pollutants that are released from burning fossil fuels, so things like coal, natural gas, and oils, those air pollutants react with water vapor, and they can form nitrous and sulfuric acids, which are pretty strong acids. And as those acids fall to the earth in the form of precipitation, it can kill the plants by killing the new growth of the plants. It can also kill the roots. And then that will in turn affect the animals that use the plant for food and shelter. Ozone depletion is another area of concern. And ozone is composed of 3 oxygen atoms bonded together. And the ozone is really important because it protects us from harmful solar radiation, so like UV rays that come in from the sun. And CFCs are actually the #1 contributor to ozone depletion because they break the ozone apart. And CFCs were once used in the 70s and 80s in aerosol cans and refrigerants, coolants, and things like that. After they realized the impact, they banned them in the United States, but they're not banned worldwide, which is still leading to an ozone depletion. Another area of concern in North Carolina is bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Bioaccumulation is when toxins are metabolized and built up in an individual over time. So organisms that live in water, for example, will move those toxins in through their skin or gills. And biomagnification refers to organisms that are higher in the food chain are going to ingest more of a toxin because they're going to get more with every organism they ingest. So it magnifies as you move up the food chain. In North Carolina, there's an issue of exotic, invasive, or non-native species. Invasive species refers to an organism that causes harm. Non-native is just an organism that is not normally found in that habitat. These species will experience exponential growth, and sometimes these species are introduced accidentally, so they weren't meant to be placed there, and sometimes they're put there purposely in an attempt to control a population, but that doesn't work all the time. So slowly they will take over an organism's habitat and try to take over the niche. So the two organisms will outcompete, and these organisms, these invasive species, will actually win over another organism. Beach erosion is the gradual movement of sand And humans have actually tried to solve that problem by using things like jetties, groins, and seawalls, but it turns out that we just actually worsen the problem somewhere else. Urban development or urbanization. This is a particularly big problem in the Piedmont region. So as we build land or factories or homes, what have you, we can cause habitat loss, degradation, and fragmentation. And there's also a problem with runoff. So the more, let's say, sidewalks or parking lots we build, the more water that can't seep into the ground and will end up running off into a river, causing water pollution. Waste lagoons in North Carolina. Hogs is North Carolina's biggest industry. There are more hogs than people in North Carolina. And 10 million hogs will produce 40 million gallons of waste each day. And all of that waste, in turn, some of it will be used as fertilizers, but some of that waste will release methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So all of these problems are interconnected. With the hog or lagoon industry, there's little regulations. They have voluntary methods, meaning that there are suggested methods for having a hog farm, but no one's required to follow them. And over time, those fertilizers or even waste will run off into the water, causing more water pollution to occur. When we talk about human impacts, there's three terms we need to be familiar with. The first one is conservation, which ideally just means using less of a material. Stewardship is a person's thought that, or duty to respect the environment, meaning to do reintroduction programs, maybe do areas that we maintain just for reintroducing species or bringing up an almost extinct species, things like that. And sustainability is using resources to meet the needs of people today while still keeping the needs of future generations in mind and making sure that we have enough materials for future generations to live as we did or as they need to.